Aloha and welcome to the Embodied Healing Self podcast with your host, Jen Mons. Each week, join me for soul-inspired, conscious conversations around embodied healing and awakening to your soul's purpose. Thank you for listening in. Aloha and welcome back. So this week's guest, you may remember from episode 32, Your Soul Contract Decoded. I am bringing back for you once again Nicolas David Ngan. He is the co-founder of the Center for Conscious Ascension, whose purpose is to assist light workers through the process of ascension, a gradual awakening of the personality to embody at higher levels of awareness and consciousness. He's an Amazon #1 best-selling author on both sides of the Atlantic of Your Soul Contract Decoded, discovering the spiritual map of your life with numerology. He has 4 top-ranking shows on Gaia.com, Open Minds, channels with Regina Meredith on the soul contract work, and Walk-In Souls. He teaches practitioners globally online in soul contract reading, divine healing, and light body integration. He was born in New Zealand, completed a degree in chemical engineering, and worked in research and marketing. He always felt there was something special for him to do in life, and that the conventional system wasn't telling him and he wasn't living in. Leaving New Zealand in 1987, he traveled throughout Southeast Asia and lived in Japan for nearly 2 years in search of that special thing. This was the beginning of his spiritual awakening. After traveling in Europe, he worked in London in corporate finance, in satellite communications until 1997. He then traveled to Central and South America, India, and Nepal, visiting sacred sites and connecting with the high-frequency energies of the Andes and the Himalayas. This prepared him to move fully into his spiritual work on returning to the United Kingdom. He established the Center for Conscious Ascension with Almeria, Ariel Alahari in 2002. He's a spiritual teacher, healer, author, and artist, and he lives in the United Kingdom. So it is with great honor to bring back to the episode this week as one of my teachers in divine healing, which is a tool that I use with my clients to clear subconscious programming through the energy body. So welcoming this week, Nicolas David Ngan. Thank you for being here. Aloha, friends and family, and welcome back to the Embodied Healing Self podcast. I am back again this week with Nicolas David Ngan from the United Kingdom. Some of you may remember that he was on the show almost exactly a year ago to teach us about Your Soul Contract Decoded. And I am really excited to share another healing opportunity with you today around divine healing. You may remember on the show a year ago, as we were actually in the interview process, he began to sort of touch into what divine healing was. And I knew in that moment that it was something that I would be doing and training in and integrating into my work. And since then, I have learned from him at the Center of Conscious Ascension, and I have implemented these divine healing sessions into my own practice and had such great results with these sessions that I knew I wanted to bring him back on the show to share about this healing technique that's available in the world with all of you. So thank you so much, Nicolas, for coming back on the show again today.
Thanks for having me, Jen. Really looking forward to this.
Me too. So I wanted to just share with the audience before we start that, I always believe in creating sacred space and all the work that we do. And before we actually hit the record button, you led us with an opening prayer and creating space for this particular, for this show. And that this work that you're doing, that we're here to show with the audience today is very sacred. And there's a lot of integrity in this work, and it's really about the healing of the collective. It's beyond the space between you and I, but it's the audience, it's the planet, it's the universe. And the reason I'm so excited to share this with everybody is because most of the listeners have heard me share little parts of my personal journey throughout the different shows, the episodes on the show. And a couple of the things that I've touched on are the healing of the physical body through nutrition, the healing of the emotional body through healing core wounds, the healing of your mindset, the healing of relationships. And there's this deeper kind of, whole picture of the energy body that really encompasses all of these. And it's the part that we can't see. It's the subconscious ego programming, sort of the shadow work, I like to call it, that keeps showing up over and over again. And what's really been present for me is that this is really a deeper layer of healing. Once we heal our relationship with our physical body and our emotional body and our relationships within our life, it's like this deeper level is really uncovering and discovering these ego patterns in the subconscious. And divine healing is a method that allows us to reprogram. So I'm really excited for you to come on here to share a little bit about how this came to you to share with your students and the work that you're doing. So I just wanted to share that with the audience. Thank you so much for all the work that you do in the world. I know that you're continually creating more and teaching more, and I'm just really honored to be one of your students. So thank you for your willingness to share your gifts in the world.
Okay, thanks for that lovely introduction, Jen.
So go ahead.
Yeah. The Center for Conscious Ascension was formed by Amira Ariel Hilaire. She's the source, one of the three practitioners who developed divine healing, along with a couple of colleagues of ours, because this was back in 2005, because Amira and I had been searching for a tool to clear our deep separation programs, because we both had a lot of disempowerment in our childhoods. And we've been searching for many years for the right sort of tool. And we couldn't quite find the right thing. So in the end, she decided to develop her own tool. And she used to be a medical doctor, but realized that healing was going to have much more effect on people than handing out prescriptions after 5-minute consultations. So she and the two others, Roshana and Mary, they were called at the time, they proceeded to channel from source, or from many groups of high dimensional beings, not just one, but many different groups, divine healing. And it came through over a period of a year, 26 different charts, one corresponding to each letter of the alphabet. And they each did about a third of it. And they would meet once a month and assemble the first Divine Healing Level 1 manual. And they thought, this is it. This is the tool to dismantle the ego, to go back in consciousness to source where we come from, because we're in a game of separation from spirit, where we deliberately choose that a soul able to go to sleep, wake up here in this reality feeling like this is all there is, and feeling abandoned by God, not trusting God, and feeling unworthy to be loved by God, standard human programs in some unique combination. And so this tool came in from source because it's time for us to go home in consciousness to source. And this tool is designed to dismantle the entire ego construct all the way through all our soul level programmings, past lives, hidden subconscious ego agendas, pretty much everything that makes us human and have this limited experience. It's designed to dismantle that whole thing layer by layer using our higher self, because it built us. Therefore, it knows how to peel our ego onion back to the pure love that we are. And so this is the broad purpose of divine healing, is to return to our true essence, which is love, while still embodied. And as a result of that, it frees us from many of the limitations and challenges of embodied life. And it's the way home, basically. It's basically really a master key to ascension. That's the purpose of it, to clean out our ego, eventually, completely, if you really work on it, and embody our higher consciousness, our higher self, and allow that to express through us, to express our true divinity, and to bring us online with our true purpose in life, to serve others, bring more love into the world. Because when our ego is really clear, then magic things start to happen, life starts to flow, as you've experienced. Divine healing, when life changes radically, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yes.
And the whole filter changes. And I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that. Just the.
Yeah, I'd love to actually. So I come from a background of, holistic wellness and life coaching and spiritual life coaching and blending healing and coaching together. And divine healing was a tool that really allowed me to hold the space for deeper healing in the work that I was already doing through coaching. So it was it's a really great tool for me to use to go in and dive really deep. And from a personal experience, what happened for me actually, and this is where, this is where I think of the energetic attraction. So this was in February of this year. Okay. Yeah. Right before the whole pandemic, 2 weeks before this, 10 days, literally before this happened. Yeah. I mean, I think of the timing of our class, and there's so many synchronicities just around that. But from the perspective of being a healer and a coach and a person who owns my own business and who is doing this as a service to the people in my life, there have been radical shifts in my both personal and professional life. It was it felt like a gateway that just opened up. And I think the best way for me to describe it, because there's so many external things that I could share that are tangible, that show results, financial abundance, amazing clients, deep connections with people in my family, my marriage, my children, my parents, all of these relationships are healing at a deeper layer. And I've been doing deep healing work for years, but I felt like this was just the next layer. But the best part about my personal experience is it's coming more from a place of alignment. And that was actually my word for 2020 was alignment. And it's providing me the feeling of freedom, and it's providing me trust. It's providing me, you talked about separation programs. It's like coming home and realizing that there was no separation to clear separation. It was like my ego patterns that were tricking me into thinking that all these, they were tricking me into thinking about what my life story actually was. And I feel like the veil has been lifted at sort of that deeper level, where when you said coming home, that's what it feels like. It's it's a feeling of relaxing into the truth, almost, is what it feels like for me. And so, yes, externally, there have been many validations, which, maybe validations are an ego pattern too, but it's certainly nice to experience that some of these things are real and that they're happening. So that's been my personal experience. I've really enjoyed and had some amazing and powerful breakthroughs with clients during these sessions. And the clients are loving the sessions too, so much sometimes that they don't really need my coaching as much anymore. That's how powerful the sessions are. So yeah.
Yeah, basically dissolve the ego, which we're initially imprisoned by, effectively. We're under its spell, where we're following the path of suffering of the mind, because the ego thinks it's all powerful. And as we dissolve the ego, we start to get into the flow of bliss. I call it the path of bliss. It's called the spiritual signature. As we surrender the ego, then more high consciousness comes in, from the higher self. We follow the spiritual signature, which is more and more, we converge on it. And that's where, in each moment, if we're present, and we feel enough of our heart opens to the next right action. And the action that opens to the most is where our soul wants to go. If we start following that in life, we start to align to our true soul purpose. And then we move away from the imprinted illusions and programs of what we should be doing in life to actually truly what our soul wishes us to do. Then life opens and flows as yours has. And then it's about being in the moment and surrendering, moving from the left brain to the right brain to the more feminine way of functioning, which is what I did when I learned divine healing. I mean, it cleared the first 3 or 4 years after I learned it. It cleared so much stuff. I realized I have a tool to get free for the first time in my life. And I've been at it for 46 years already. And it was like a magical gift. I use it every day to get free. And then my life has radically changed. And now when I run my business, which has been running for 30 odd years now, I just go with what feels right. And then magic happens most of the time. Things open and flow. And it's about just being present in the moment, following spirit, which is our true nature. We just spiritual beings having this human experience, but we start to have a more spiritual embodied experience. And the magic of life just comes to us because we're in the flow. We're not forcing things, which is what the ego is doing. We're using the power of spirit to manifest a much better, more satisfying life. And many of us are caught in the program matrix of external material achievement. Even if we are spiritual, we get infected by it. I call it an infection, a good term given what's going on. And then we feel that that is actually the way it is. And we realize actually that's false. It's not true at all. And many of us have got, especially in lockdowns, have got very clear what is important. And so many superfluous things have gone away. And it's love, relationships, and connection to ourselves, our spirit. And so it's changed people. And it's enabled you to continue that change, divine healing, to go with your natural flow. I know many people who are, I'd say, trapped in the matrix because we got brainwashed that it should be a certain way, and I wish you to break free. And the only way to truly break free is to follow your spirit, follow what opens your heart, but you've got to connect with it first. And divine healing is based upon asking, you shall receive, because you align to your higher self and you allow yourself to open it and to guide you. And it knows exactly how to dismantle what you think is your life to get you to your true life, following spirit.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing all that. What came through for me is I actually want to share now the other side of the story of my year through divine healing. And that is that at the beginning of the year, I started out in a partnership with a friend of mine, co-creating a school together. And now that I'm reflecting back, and I've known this to be true, but I actually was on the receiving end of a divine healing session back in May. And the next day, like this partnership was something that my heart wanted, and it was out of alignment with spirit. So this is just really interesting. So the heart wanted it from a wounded place. Actually, now I know this, but I didn't know this at the time. Partnership began to break up. And so it wasn't what I thought that I wanted. But in the end, it was from true alignment. And so what I wanted to share that is because these are things that we can't see. These are like subconscious things that we can't see. We don't know that they're there. Months later, with the training that I've had, I'm able to go back and see the bigger picture of why actually us breaking apart in partnership is the alignment for both of us. But at the time, it didn't feel good because it was sort of activating or triggering an old pattern for me, if that makes sense. So I wanted to share that there's, I went through this healing process, and it did allow me to open up to many, many great things. But I also want to share that in that process, that I did have a challenging experience that felt uncomfortable at the time. But then the end result of that is more aligned flow in my own personal experience. And I know that in your own personal experience, you've also had, many ups and downs and breakups and co-creations and collaborations and experiences that have brought you to where you are. So when we're talking about opening up to the divine flow and bliss, we're not saying that it's completely 100% like that in every moment of every day and all the time, that we may still become aware of, or at least I know that I am still becoming aware of. We get to a place where we become aware of the old patterns because now we've done some healing around them. And then to me, it feels like energetically, I'm not attached to those old patterns anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They loosen up. They become third parties rather than sort of an integral dark part of us. It's
Right. It's
driving the whole show.
Yeah. Yeah. They're no longer in control driving the show, like you said. It's just kind of like they're hanging out and we see them, but they don't really have any power over us anymore. They're just kind of, hanging out and every once in a while I'll get a little visit or a message through a person that will sort of, trigger one of my old subconscious ego patterns. It's almost like an invitation to just notice if it's still there, or, is there something else to explore, which I would think that this would be an opportunity to then think like, is this a good time for me to do another divine healing session? So you shared what divine healing is and how it was created. I'm going to share with the listeners that there's a website, thedivinehealing.com. Is that right?
Divinehealingtraining.com.
Divinehealingtraining.com, where you can find out more information. I'm going to share the link in the show notes. But I want to share from my perspective, because we hear that there's 26 charts. What does that look like? What does that mean? What I really love about the divine healing is that there are some really deeply rooted charts. There's some, some trauma, some self-sabotaging behavior, some ego patterns. And then there's some gentle integration charts, things that we never even really think about, which is something that I love too, because oftentimes when I'm in a session, I've had other types of healing modalities completed on me that were super, super intense. And then when I was finished with the session, I just felt completely wiped out and I needed to sleep for like 3 days. And for me, the divine healing process was able to go just as deep, but it also had the gentle, subtle integrations that allowed for what, in my experience, was a more balanced approach to doing this healing work. So for the audience, that I just wanted to share that there's 26 different charts that start with the letters, and that some of the charts can be really deeply rooted things, and some of them are more gentle integrations. And I wanted to just invite you to share, as you begin to create or co-create this method of healing, as you begin to start this school, and that was in 2000, and what year was it?
2006. Amira and our two other colleagues, they put together the first manual, and then they started teaching it. And I was learning it at that time because it was their baby.
And at what point in time did you know that you would then decide to teach this?
Well, it came because I had a very difficult childhood. I had post-traumatic stress disorder from a very abusive, disempowering childhood, which was part of my pattern to learn to come to my power. And I was completely emotionally numbed out, living in my head most of my life. And then divine healing was the beginning. Well, it already started in early 2000, but divine healing was the acceleration of the dissolution of the frozenness of the PTSD. And then what happened was that I started to move into a lot more feeling. And so paradoxically, I had to learn to become an emotional healer, having lived in my head most of my life, and come deep into my emotions to hold space for others. So that was the reason I became a divine healing teacher, primarily to work on myself, but also to learn to master the clearing of emotions for myself and others. So I would go from the journey of being completely numbed out to be completely emotionally fluid and mobile, and be able to sense and hold space emotionally for someone else, which I'd never been able to do when I was younger. It would have been an impossible thought, but we always go from a negative polarized experience, which we want to overcome in life, and through the process of divine healing, becoming whole myself, but also being able to hold space for others. So now I'm one of those touchy-feely, hypersensitive healers, which I never was before. So it's a bit of a paradox, really, but that's how life works. And the soul wanted me to go from one extreme to another, but I'm still working on becoming more integrated and emotionally and continuing to hold emotional space. So that's been a big gift for me.
Yeah, I find it interesting that the thing that we don't have when we're younger is the thing that we become.
Yeah,
Oftentimes.
that's why we're born, Jen. We go from one polarity to another, and that's the soul wants the deep, visceral, cellular experience of going from one extreme to another. That's why we're born on many different issues in life. And it's about getting clear that most of the stuff that happens early in life we don't like. We have a severe aversion simply because it gets us clear what we do want. And so if we start focusing on it, it's actually our karmic patterns and the hard stuff we face, our challenges, is the driver to look for where we really want to go. Because if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be motivated. We wouldn't drive forward. We wouldn't transform. So this compression that we're under, like globally we're under compression, but also individually we're under this compression, and working our way through and dealing with the issues that the compression brings out of us, that's how we grow at a soul level. That's the whole point of it. Okay, to be stressed like that, so we do grow to relieve the stress.
Yeah, and the ego patterns are always present along the way. You know, there's avoidance, rejection, abandonment, right? Those are some really strong patterns
Judgment,
that always.
Yeah.
What's the other one?
Judgments,
fears. Those are really big ones.
Yeah.
That are going to keep coming up, and that's part of this divine healing. So what I was thinking is, we've talked a lot about what it is, and you and I talked about, I reached out to you in June to do this recording. Yeah. We picked a date. It was November 4th. We didn't even think about the fact that it was the election time. And I find it very interesting that our schedules brought us together at this time. It's episode 77, just divine synchronicities. And I thought that maybe what we could do for the audience, I'd like to talk a little bit about, how this can relate to the people specifically on this, that I know they're listening in on the show, and then give them a little snapshot of what a divine healing session is like. Would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, we could do that. We've already set the space for it, and we can do that. I think we can. What we can do is that we can clear some energy interference that may be around people when you have a lot of negative emotions, especially given the amount of fear in the world. A lot of energy interference from the astral plane affects us. We can clear some of that. But then we can work on whatever other negative emotions people have been dealing with in this moment that are up. And then we can have a direct experience of it.
Yeah, let's tap into that. I know that, I did my own group healing circle last night, and that there's just a lot of emotions present everywhere. There's been a theme of uncertainty throughout the year. Yeah. And it's happening today as we speak. And so I know that this episode will go live next week, but there's always an energy that's going to, still be present, next week when this does go live. So we'll be doing some healing in this session live right now. And even as the listeners listen to that, they'll still be getting that as they're listening to what it is that we're sharing.
Yeah, the transmission of what we're doing will be embedded in the recordings. So those of you who are listening, you can use this repeatedly, and it'll give you the same experience, but you'll have different issues each time you listen to it.
Yes, as I hear you say that, what I just want to sort of reflect back to the audience is that what we begin to notice is that whatever it is within us that needs to be healed, it starts to show up in different areas of our life. It starts to show up in different relationships in our life. And so whatever it is that's present for you as you're hearing this, it's going to be received in a way that you're ready to receive it, and it'll be transmuted at the time that you receive it with, what is present at that time. So I guess it's an invitation to not completely get into your head about what it's supposed to look or feel like if you're listening at this time, and just allow yourself to just sort of receive, what it is that we're sharing.
I'll guide everyone through this. Divine healing is more about bringing feeling consciousness to whatever issue is running. It's not a thought process.
Mm-hmm.
About bringing feeling consciousness, because when you can feel something, you can heal it.
Yeah, feel to heal.
Yeah. But if you can't feel it, which is what the ego tries to do, tries to stop us, then you can't heal it. And all the soul wants you to do is to feel an issue, the negative context, and then we transform it. So we're going to bring consciousness to some issues, and we're going to transform it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll clear a bit of interference first. I'll do this quietly. So if you're listening, and just take your shoes off and sit back upright, put your feet on the ground. I'll do the same. And we're going to clear some energy interference, which has been feeding off a lot of the fear and negative emotions that humanity has been running at this time. So we're going to clear what we call earthbound souls first. These are beings who left a physical body but are hanging out with you because they have a resonance with you because you're carrying the same issues that they had when they were in bodies. So we'll do that first quietly. And just breathe through your mouth rather than the nose, because then you can feel what's going on. Get a sense of what's happening with your body. Here we go, quietly. You feel the shift as these beings leave. You may literally feel things leaving your body. You're very sensitive. Thank you, angels, for your help and assistance with us. Now we're going to release discards, entities, and attachments, the whole range of beings who attach to us to keep us unconscious. Here we go, quietly. Okay, so all these beings have left. So I want you just to breathe, and you may feel you want to yawn. You may feel a bit lighter. Okay, you may literally have felt things leaving your body. So I'm just using the paper manual in front of me now. And now we're going to clear what we call main low frequency programs. So I'd like you to breathe in through your mouth and breathe in to whatever feelings are coming up at this time. They'll probably be triggered because by coming on the call when you listen to it or watch the YouTube video later. So be aware of any negative emotions. It could be fear, it could be fatigue from the day, it could be anything, it could be judgments. Just be aware of what that is. But I want you to feel it, not analyze it. So just breathe into that now. So you can turn into the program rather than avoid it, which is what the ego usually tries to do. Become aware, honestly, how that program operates in your life without getting into a big story. Be aware if your ego is trying to deny this program. So just breathe your consciousness into the feeling. It takes a little bit of practice if you have not done this before. And become aware, if you're able to, where this program comes from. It could be from childhood, might be a past life, could be from another dimension. Just breathe into it, and the energy may direct you there to where it comes from. Because the more we can target a program, the deeper the clearing. And open to all aspects of the feeling of this program. Coming in, and you may want to yawn. Okay, this means the negative energy is leaving. It's fine to yawn. Or some people burp. and become aware of any attachment the ego has to holding on to this program. The ego is pretty sticky. It likes to hold on to things. So becoming aware of all the things which hold this program in place so we can clear them in a short while. Become aware of any feelings of being bad for having it. And most importantly, any judgment the ego has of the program. And the more you can open to the program, the more it can integrate and heal. So in divine healing, we use command codes because we are each a spark of the divine. We just forgot that we come from source. So the more we believe and know and feel that we're a spark of the divine, when we do these command codes, we're commanding the universe to make a change. So I'm going to say this command code out loud. So we're going to work with Saint Germain, one of the Ascended Masters, this purple flame, to clear this particular program. And you can listen to this podcast repeatedly to clear other programs if you want. People have found this sort of thing very powerful. So we ask Saint Germain to pour the purple flame through the aura and subtle bodies, to burn away all low frequency energies that we have discovered, so that new higher level vibrations can be accessed. Saint Germain and Higher Self, please burn out in one go. 100% the core issue through all levels and dimensions. 100% the original cause through all levels and dimensions. 100% the source of its power through all levels and dimensions. 100% more energy attached through all levels and dimensions. 100% all of its effects through all levels and dimensions. Thank you. So just say that out loud. Thank you. Because gratitude opens the connection to source, bypasses our ego, and allows grace to descend.
Thank you.
And help our life flow. Just feel the shift there. You might feel a little dizzy, yawning, tired, a bit altered, or really altered from that. So this is the principle of divine healing. We bring feeling consciousness to it, or as many aspects as possible, and then we command the universe to clear that layer of the program. So a layer of what we call the ego onion is peeled, and it's the next right layer is an order for peeling our ego onions, so we get back to the pure love that we are. So I hope everyone enjoyed that.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm thinking that I know my clients who've had a session are going to love that, to receive this on the recording. So thank you for that. And this main low frequency program is just one of these 26 different layers of charts. So it just kind of gives you, the idea of, and every session starts out with whatever's present for the client or the need at that time. So you may never even get to this particular chart of main low frequency programming. That's just what was present for us today. So thank you so much for taking us through that experience. And what happens in a session, I love that you shared about the energy shifts. I notice this all the time. The yawning, the burping, the sneezing, the having to relieve yourself in the bathroom, that comes up too sometimes, multiple times in a session. It's just the body's way of, relieving and releasing that energy as well. And that's totally normal to have that experience. So that's how you'll just know, you'll feel the body shifting. So thank you for that. And I hope that the audience enjoyed that. I'm going to share in the links in the show notes how to, if you're interested in finding more, Nicolas and his team, they have put together webinars, they do training so that you can find out more about divine healing and go deeper into that. One of the things that we talked about sharing today also, and I know that this is really going to resonate with the audience, is how can we integrate the learnings from the soul contract and the divine healing. And one of the things that has been present in my life around this belief of what I'm here to learn, I'm here to teach, and that keeps showing up in the work that I do, the clients that I work with, and also how I'm seeing this global shift happening, my perception of what's happening globally, is really this invitation to step more into what you called the divine bliss or the divine flow, which feels a little bit more of a feminine flow or approach to a way of living. And also reminding everybody that both male and female embody both masculine and feminine. So when we say feminine, we're not just talking about females, but the energy, the divine feminine energy within each of us, whether we are male or female. And one of the themes that I've been seeing and that we talked about you sharing on the show was, I loved that you used these words. I wanted to bring them up to make sure that I said the words that you used, because awakening to true purpose with the foundation and being grounded in your soul expression, but sharing from a way of the divine feminine in the heart. So understanding through soul contract what it is that you're here. Now I'm feeling like I'm going to burp because I'm having energy shifts. Understanding from the perspective of the soul contract, like what it is that you're here to do. But then there's this gap of like not really knowing how to get there, or what it even really means. And then there's this divine healing that sort of ties it all together, because really what's happening here is, like you said, there's the polarity, right? Like what we came in with, what our soul came here to work on, is what we didn't have, is what we come here to do. We come here to work through that, so that at the end of our life, it's like we achieve our soul came in with the intention to heal this part of us and gave us this setup so that we didn't have anything that we needed, so that we could work through these wounds of abandonment and judgment and separation and rejection, and those subconscious wounds that show up, so that we can be of service in our fullness, in our wholeness, with grace, in our divine presence, when we heal those subconscious wounds. And what happens is, what it really takes is a lot of trust. It takes a lot of trust from what I see in, just living in that flow. And so what you created, and what I wanted to share with the audience, because one of the things that happens a lot in the women that I work with, because I serve women clients, is that there's a level of dissatisfaction in their quality of life. There's a level of unhappiness, either around their career, their spouse, their relationship with money, their purpose, and what they're here to do. And there's something missing. There's something that they believe is missing, that they're seeking to get them to, as you said, really come home to the true nature of who they were born to be. And it takes a willingness to actually go into the healing, because the avoidance of it is an ego pattern. The rejection of it is an ego pattern. So what I thought we could do is, what I wanted to ask you is, what are curious insights that are coming up as I share that around this, this energy of within our culture in the world today, constantly trying to prove ourselves, really understand what our purpose is, still feeling unfulfilled, still seeking external gratification
and validation.
Yeah, still seeking all of that.
Especially for women, yeah.
Especially for women. There's like a gap there. And what they're really wanting is to come home and to feel, what I'm hearing that they want is to feel what I've experienced this year: freedom and happiness and trust and flow and bliss. So we have my soul contract. We could bring that up and we could share that. But as I'm sharing that, what are you noticing or feeling is the gap, and how can divine healing help with that?
Okay, let me get your soul contract organized, Jen. So, okay. So I will take the screen now. Share the screen. Just gotta get it up. It's coming up now. All right. Can you see that?
Yeah, it's taking a minute to pop up. It's there it is. Yeah.
Okay. So for some of you who may be watching the first time, basically the soul contract takes your birth certificate name, the sounds of it, and it uses ancient Hebrew to sound to match your name, and then ancient Hebrew numbers inherent in these letters drop out of it. And we decode them on the Star of David to work out what is the underlying program fitting each moment of your life. This is like, most of you may have heard of the law of attraction. Well, this is the attraction code, the programming underneath the law of attraction that creates every moment of your life. And we decode these numbers with a bit of math. I won't go into the detail here. But essentially, you have two triangles in life. You have a physical triangle, which is about establishing you as a personality in this lifetime, with a brand new each lifetime. And the spiritual triangle, which is the true mission. That is what you're seeking when you feel dissatisfied sitting in your glass box, running a division or a whole company or whatever you're doing, because I used to do that 25 years ago. And the idea of the soul contract is when you understand what it is, you understand what your karmic patterns are, which is the negative context, all the things you don't like in life, which gets you focused on what you do want, and you activate your talents, physical talents to overcome them, then that karmic pattern becomes your gift. And that's where you start to feel more satisfied. When you turn towards the things which are challenging you the most and transform into your gifts layer by layer, the talents get strong, get you to the physical goals in life. And this also happens with the spiritual side, sorry. The spiritual karma here is basically what will really get you out of bed in the morning, what really excites you. This is what most people are searching for. What is my core spiritual gift when the corporate world and the conventional 3D world is not satisfying you? Because no amount of material possessions or money will satisfy the deep need to align with the soul. And we overcome this by, Jen and I both used to be engineers a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And the spiritual talents help you overcome the spiritual karma. It helps you get to the goals. And if you become aware of these 6 outer aspects and you consciously, over time, this is percentage complete, work through them, the soul destiny, the real purpose, that special thing that you know is there, that no one's been able to tell you. You might have been searching for it from when you were young. At school, you asked your parents, I did, asked at university or higher education of some kind, at work. You never got the answer of, why am I really here and what am I meant to do? And you've been searching for it for your whole life. Well, this reveals what that answer is. And if you consciously work on these 6 outer aspects, and the soul destiny starts to reveal itself, and then what happens is that life starts to flow. You start aligning with what we call the spiritual signature, which is what I mentioned before. I'll call that up here. Just got to find the right picture. Here it is. You move from the path of suffering of the ego, which is a little ego here, as you expand your consciousness and heal, and you align with where the soul contract wants to take you, which is a spiritual signature. Okay, you converge on the true path of what opens your heart, which is what we talked about at the beginning. You can use divine healing to clear all those programs in this soul contract here. All the programs identified in these 6 outer aspects, we use divine healing in a very targeted way, like you just experienced, to clear these as the programs emerge, as the soul starts to show it. So we don't go looking for the stuff. We just work with whatever is up in the moment. And if you work on all these, you start to converge. And as you start to converge, the real purpose of why you're here starts to reveal itself. It's a real mission. And that will build upon whatever life experience you've had so far. I used to work in the space communications industry before this, 25 years ago. But that experience has been really useful in developing a spiritual business. And as you converge, life opens and flows. And then you get that satisfaction of knowing what your true purpose is, which is revealed to you layer by layer. It doesn't come to you all in one go. But as you converge, which is what divine healing allows you to do, because you know what the path is, and divine healing clears the blockages on the pathway to align here, then life becomes very fulfilling and open. And you live a different life altogether than what we've been programmed to believe is important. As I said, material things and status and authority. And I felt in the corporate world, I was just sitting on top of a salt mountain working for a bunch of people I actually didn't like and wondering what I was doing there for. So I left at 37 from that to do what I'm doing now. And it's much more satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
This is how we go from the dissatisfying place to here. And the pathway is a non-linear one. It's not something which we can work out in our minds. It's something which we have to go in each moment with what is the next right step, because it's about trusting, as Jen said, surrendering and allowing your higher self to guide you through the sensations in your body. Not how your brain's been highly trained by whatever higher education you had or corporate education you had. It's about going with the heart, what feels right. And then the true mission starts to manifest, it starts to reveal itself. And this flow and alignment starts to come, and life becomes very fulfilling, because then you're on what I call the path of bliss. And the flow of abundance of love, ideas, and eventually financial flow in a different way starts to appear. This is how divine healing and soul contract work are aligned. Soul contract is the map. Divine healing helps you align to the map and move down that pathway to be in a completely different life, where you're in the moment flowing with spirit rather than at the mercy of external forces and having to follow rules and regulations and a lot of programming and things which in the end you probably decided you just can't live with it anymore. It's just you're done with it. And a lot of people find that out as they awaken. They just can't do it.
Yes. And so as I'm got my own visual here, it's like, this is where we operate. This is our soul signature, and divine healing is another tool that helps us to bring that, right into alignment with each other. And I've certainly experienced that this year. My soul destiny is the 11-2 of a spiritual teacher, and I made the transition from coach to teacher and healer this year. I started attracting more clients that wanted to now become coaches and healers, allowing me the opportunity to really step more fully into that soul destiny. And the core wound that would show up around that is rejection. And so it happened, it showed up, it came, it was a pattern that was, running underneath that I broke through, and it opened up another path for me. And I shared with you the audience at the beginning of the show, that what I've personally been experiencing and witnessing in all of my clients that are doing these sessions is that sense of freedom. There's this really big sense of freedom and lightness and acceptance and trust. It's like the feeling comes first, and then we start to see the results around in our life. Like we start to notice the presence and the feeling in our day-to-day life, rather than just based on the attachment or validation by a specific result. We start to feel it, we start to become it, and then we start to notice how our life is changing. So that's what I noticed happened for me. You did create an overlay chart. I don't know if you have that with you. You sent it to my email. There it is. So for those of you listening to the show, I want to invite you to check this particular episode out on YouTube. Right now, we're probably around, the getting close about the 50-minute mark. So if you go to YouTube and chime in around 40 minutes, you'll be able to see the visuals that he's sharing right here. And it just helps to understand and give a visual of what is really happening here. So he's got an overlay chart with, I'll let you go ahead and share that.
Yeah, so this is Jen's birth chart, which is like the cave of her life. This is the primary frequency, set of frequencies creating a life. So in summary, it's about grounding here, relating to society, which is why she became an engineer, something very 3D. going to be of service to others, come into a power, trusting the process, taking that trust and sharing knowledge out in the world, building a structure of knowledge and supporting others with this resilient spring as she shares that knowledge. And the current name is like a layer of icing that infuses into the spirit chart and helps it grow in different ways. And again, this is about giving people support and structure and serving them. And the title we came up with for this show was Awakening to Your True Purpose. And this is where we use the soul contract work to understand the energies of a title or a business or a service. And so the foundation of this call tonight is 17.8, about explaining in a very grounded way what this work is about. Doing it with the divine feminine here, a lot of love, and sharing that love with you, sharing that knowledge. It's a transmission of the show so that you can shift from a more masculine perspective, which, especially for women, is imposed upon you by the patriarchal society we have, and to balance more into your feminine, because that's where the answer lies. And that's actually where the true power is for women, by feeling in the flow of the heart rather than trying to be more in the masculine energy, which is what's needed to survive out in a very competitive Western business world, especially in North America. So that's why we chose this title, to help you make a shift into your true nature, which is the gateway into awakening your true purpose by following the spiritual signature, or what opens your heart in each moment.
Yeah, and I, as I'm listening to you say that, like, there's been a lot of opportunity for us this year to, as we both share, to slow down and really remember what is important. And so a more divine feminine energy and approach to doing this is, a couple of things that I integrate into both my personal and professional life that have worked really well for me are the principles of the divine feminine, like cyclical creative energy, really allowing my creative flow to be in alignment with the moon cycles, which are in alignment with our menstrual cycles, which is a very powerful divine source of creativity and energy. And remembering that just that nurturing, just that nourishment, that nurturing, the compassion, and really just tapping into, and at the deeper level, the abundance, which is all the sacral chakra. The sacral chakra is the receiving, the creativity, and the abundance. And so abundance in life, meaning not just financial abundance, but includes that, but also abundance in love and relationships and health and well-being and trust. And so those are some of the principles of the divine feminine that we've been talking about in our group, that we've really been tapping into this year. And I'm noticing more and more people willing to do it and willing to listen and open up and sort of let go of the hustle, let go of the grind that you and I have both done. We did it in our corporate careers. We did, living in the mind when we were both engineers. And so there's like this new space that's opening up for curiosity, for, many people just becoming aware of their desire or need to feel fulfilled and in their purpose, and recognizing that their choices and how they make their choices, if they're making choices from their ego patterns or a wounded place, if they're, for example, if they feel unseen, unheard, unworthy, unloved, and so they then, become a very successful, hard-driven corporate person, entrepreneur, whatever, but they're hustling, they're working really hard in order to get that recognition that they're seeking. Well, in the end, they're never really going to feel fulfilled until they understand, until they allow themselves to do some type of healing to break those patterns, and then understand like what the need is underneath, which is really a more divine feminine approach, is, as you said, feel it to heal it, and give yourself permission to lean into it and be open to receiving. I think receiving healing and support and connection has been a really huge theme that I've noticed this year, because a lot of what's happening is uncertainty and fear. And the uncertainty and the fear is really a need for support and connection and trust. So that's what's been showing up around the divine feminine. So thank you for sharing all of that and tying it in with the soul destiny, the divine healing, and this particular episode, Awakening to Your True Purpose.
Okay, it was my pleasure. Thank you.
I want to invite you to share, do you know the dates of future trainings off the top of your head, or webinars, or should we just point them to your website to check out?
The next Divine Healing training on the divinehealingtraining.com is the 11th to the 14th of February 2021. It's done on Zoom. It's done at 7:30 to 3:30, 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We cover pretty much the whole Western Hemisphere. And if you go to that link, I'm looking at my other screen here, there are webinars so you can have a more in-depth experience. So on the 18th of November this year, it's called Manifest World Unity. The 11th of December, Getting into Your Flow in Life. And the 18th of January, Manifest Your Soul Purpose. So we'll be using divine healing in different ways to manifest those things so you can have a very direct experience of that. But the links to register will be on the divinehealingtraining.com, but also in the YouTube description Jen's going to put up.
Okay, awesome. And I just wanted to share for anybody who's listening who might be interested in taking this particular class, you're welcome to reach out to me with any questions. It's you're in the class with people all over the world, and you're building connections and future collaborations with I like to say light-minded people. And it's the experience. Of course, Nicolas is the teacher, and he's a wonderful teacher. You're going to get some tools that are life-changing for yourself, for other people. You can use divine healing on yourself. You can do it for people when they're not present. It's a tool that you can use. You don't have to just do a one-on-one session. It can be used in many different ways. And aside from the healing and the training that you get from that, you also co-create relationships with other people all over the world, which is also just another really valuable part of the training experience, my training experience. So I just wanted to share that for people in case, they're interested. Definitely check out the webinars that he has in the months leading up to the training. And if you have any questions specifically around that training, I know that you have a support team that also answers questions. And please feel free to share this episode with anybody who you think would really benefit from the divine healing and the healing of the subconscious and the ego patterns that are a part of the embodied experience. So thank you so much, Nicolas, for being on the show. Before we end this show, do you have any sort of words or wisdom or anything else that you'd like to share?
I think as we get on the healing path, we tend to focus on all the things which aren't working in our life, especially all the things we should have done in the past. It's important to be conscious of what's there, but it's also equally important to focus on, as we get clearer on emotionally, to focus on where we want to go. And nowadays, especially what sort of world we want to co-create together. And then deal with the issues that come up as they come up, refocus on where you want to go. It's actually how we create a better world for ourselves, our children, our families, communities, and everyone in the world. It's really important. There's a lot of darkness in the world at the moment, but if we focus on creating light but not ignore the darkness, that is what we're going to collectively get, because there are so many of us and so many other people awakening at this time. We are the change. This is how we change the world. It's through us all connecting individually and having common purpose and working with our darkness, our separation along the way.
I love that. That was a perfect way to end the show. Thank you for sharing that. It's like, don't stay trapped in the story or trapped in the healing, but also keep your heart and your mind on and your intention on where you want to go and what you want to become. I always call it the balance of being and becoming, and just, living. That's the flow, right? It's like, be aware of it, do the healing, but don't get trapped in that. Look forward to where we're going, because people really need this, and they need it they need it now more than ever, and it's happening faster and more exponentially what I'm noticing than it ever has been. People really, awakening to the need for this global collective healing. So thank you for sharing that.
Because our greatest power is us collectively focusing on a better world. It's the greatest secret ever hidden from us. And nothing can stop it once we work collectively together.
That's right. Yep. Together we are stronger.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for collaborating with me and coming on as a guest on the show, and for all the work that you do, for your commitment, for your heart, for your intention, for your teachings. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks for having me on again, Jen. This was good fun.
Oh, my pleasure. We'll see all the listeners back next week. Thank you again for joining. Hello, friends, and thank you so much for joining me today and being a part of this community. I know there are many other podcasts that you could be tuning into, and I am deeply honored that you chose to listen in and be present with me today. I love and cherish and appreciate you, and I want to invite you to join our tribe and Facebook group under jenmons.com/connect. I would also love to gift you your guide to discovering and overcoming the self-limiting beliefs standing in the way of you living in optimal health, more energy, fulfillment, and self-confidence to create an embodied, healthy, whole you. You can find this at jenmons.com/tribe. I also have one small request to help spread the love. In order for this podcast to show up in the feed of social media platforms of other like-minded people, we need reviews. So please head on over to jenmons.com/podcast to leave a review. You will also find other inspiring episodes on that page. So I personally read these reviews weekly and would love to give you a shout out and share your kind words with our listeners. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook as Jen Mons or The Holistic Coach with the W Holistic and Jen Mons, JenMons.com. Thank you so much and have an amazing day. Aloha. The content of this podcast is to educate, inspire, and inform you of pathways to an embodied healing self. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice from your medical doctor, therapist, registered dietitian, or nutritionist for any questions you may have regarding your diagnosis or condition.